Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Sinner. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up after, last week's episode left off with Harry finding the little hut, and obviously its connection to Percy, but he also sees a rock with a blood stain on it. There was like a specific symbol that was kind of associated with maybe with a boat. But obviously like he goes to look into it later on with Meg's help because Meg is just neck deep in this as well. Like she wants to find out the truth. I don't think she has her own part to play in this. Everyone does. That's the kind of the problem with this Percy situation. Everyone had their own parts to play in it, but I don't think the family's directly responsible. Sean, on the other hand, would say like they're all directly responsible. They led to Percy's situation because he's like everyone was kind of at fault with it. He made that pretty clear last episode, but he kind of doubles down on it a little bit this episode too. But Harry notices that the lady he was running into last episode, because we saw her name for a little bit. I think it's either Emilian or Emiliana. I'll just refer to her as M going forward, but I'm pretty sure, I figure it would be Emiliana, but I can't remember. Regardless, like I said, we'll just be calling her M from now on. Like the moment he saw M's desk, it's like he noticed the Ouroboros symbol, so it's like, okay, and he's not letting Meg know because he knows the only way he's going to get any truth out of her is if he talks to her himself, because he knows like Meg, as well as the Muldoons in general, it's more so her and Colin are kind of pushing towards like, getting stuff done. And like anytime they think like, someone's responsible for Percy, like we'll jump down their throat like they did with CJ. It was interesting though, like they ended up running into Mike, and it's just like Mike just like walks by Meg because it is a bit of an awkward thing, and he just like walks by without saying anything. But he goes to like one of Emiliana's places, M's place, and he ends up finding all the stuff. It turns out she was taking notes on Percy. I guess she's just like a people watcher, and she had noticed like certain things about Percy, which I love that like the moment Harry went back home after searching M's place, I thought, at first I was like, because I was legitimate like, do you think it's Sonya? I was like, I don't see her coming back here, but it's her. It's like, she's like, I thought we were breaking into each other's places, so... But she's like, I'm not the person you're looking for. But he is trying to warn her, like, right, there's already blood on that rock. And if it comes back to you, like, this case is leaking like a faucet. Like, eventually the Muldoons, essentially he's referring to, like, what happened to CJ. He's like, the Muldoons will find out and they'll come after you. But it's like, just tell me what's going on. And so it turns out she was just watching Percy from afar. She saw that Percy, you're a 25-year-old. You love being in control and stuff like that. You like being in charge and stuff. But then, like, after 2 years ago, something in her changed. She doesn't know what, but just knowing that Percy got into drugs, she started drinking a lot. She was kind of like hollowed herself out. Obviously, like she had left town for a bit and then came back. Because that was when she had moved to Portland at that time, I believe, and then had come back. Or her grandma and Colin had kind of dragged her back. But Percy actually reached out to her for help. She saw what M was doing. And it seems like there's some vein of that. Because M just says, like, she takes, like, what she needs from the situation. So, like, the other ladies, because, like, Percy had said, like, she had referenced that she had saw them, the same ladies that Harry had seen in the previous episode of, like, dancing under the moonlight. Like, I think M isn't directly connected to them. I think she took some of the stuff that they have and she kind of applied it to herself. Basically kind of being a little more in tune with nature. And obviously, like, her and Percy actually hit it off. She's like, she even says, like, we weren't really friends. I was just someone that kind of could help her. Like, Percy needed help. She was spiraling, and she needed something to kind of like help, like, stabilize, because she was spiraling out of control. And I thought it was kind of interesting that it's like, right, she's like, I want you to, they walked into the woods, because it's like, it's not something I can necessarily teach you, but Percy was like, at the very least, tell me where to start. Because it's like, right, kind of like, one of the things was like not overfishing. She was like, right, that's what me and my family do. So it's like kind of that's what's it, because I try not to destroy nature, which is interesting considering like this is all about destruction. She says like it's about kind of because if it wasn't for destruction, if it wasn't for death, there would be no rebirth. So it's almost like that representation of like something has to die just so it can be born anew. So like when you die, obviously something is, you know, feeds off of you, and I guess it's kind of born, like, you know, just like the circle of life, that then, you know, that even when you're gone, a piece of you kind of lives on, because you basically, you carry life into something else, because something will feed off of you, which something will feed off of that. I think it's kind of in that vein of that nature. But I think it could also be internalized as like, right, when a certain aspect of you dies, something else can be reborn in its place. I think there's that element too. They ended up finding like it's like, right, don't think about it, just like whatever you're feeling, like an object that like you connect with or something. And she points to like a dead tree, and she couldn't connect with it. And I thought it was interesting because for M, she kind of taught Percy, like she held onto her chest, because at first Percy couldn't feel anything from the dead tree, but it's like, no, this is supposed to be a reflection of you. She's like, oh, this is a joke, you get off like messing with me. It's like, no. And just had her sit down, and it's like, that is your love. It is, you don't have to go searching for it. It's been here the entire time, even though you don't think you've had it. You don't have to be anyone other than you, who you are. Kind of like that love is right here. That's where it really, because you feel like you've been missing it your entire life, but it's been here with you all along. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to. You don't have to be anyone that you don't want to be. All you have to do is be yourself. Just be true to who you are. And I think it gave her that sense of calm, where it's just kind of like she felt, I think, something other than all this bad stuff for a very long time. And obviously, like, Harry wants to understand more about Percy and what she was up to, but M didn't want to, like, for her, it's like, yeah, it was something personal to Percy because it was part of her journey, and she didn't want to go down that path again. It's like, yes, Percy's gone, but for Harry, it's like, I'm missing a piece to this, and to completely understand it, I need to know what it was that Percy was dealing with. And so M was like, if you want to, you're going to have to go through what Percy did. And so he kept going and going, like the whole going through the water thing. What we saw from Percy, it seemed like maybe to some, who knows, like, because I thought it was so interesting how they cut back and forth between M doing all this stuff with Percy and M doing all this stuff with Harry. We saw Harry doing it over and over and over again. It seems like maybe Percy was the same way too, because at one point M had said that they were going at it for 2 months, but it still felt like something was holding Percy back. That's why they eventually went to the other side of things, that ritual that she does later on in the episode. But I think Percy was in the same state as Harry, that she just couldn't let go. Or maybe she eventually did, or maybe she did it on the first try, whatever the case may be. Harry definitely took a couple tries, and just, I don't know what that is, but it's just kind of like, Em was talking about, like, this is your ego. You kind of got to let it go. Don't think about what to expect. And in that moment, like, he kind of went under. The moment he came out, it was just, I guess you have to fight. The whole point is, like, fighting your instincts a little bit. But I don't, like, when he was on land and she was just like, go through it. You have to keep going through it. Keep going through it. But they go back to the hut and we see the totems and we get an explanation. Obviously, the ones we already knew about, her grandma and CJ's. There's whatever the secret is, CJ's parents are definitely in on it. In particular, his mom, because it's like she's at the center of this somehow. Because we go back, because like for her, it's like her biggest, like, because it's about, letting go of these people that are kind of like these anchors to a certain extent. They kind of like have been kind of like, it's about like not only letting go of what's inside of her, what's holding her back, but it's these representations of the 5 people in her life that she has to kind of let go as well. CJ being one of them, obviously. And, his mom coming in being like, how could you, like, get out of here? And it's like, I stay away from my son, because she came there to apologize, but then it's like, I made him so much worse. So I'm assuming the death is in some relation connected. But once again, I'm like, there's something deeper. There's not, maybe it's that, maybe it's something else, but she knows something. Maybe Mike does too, but definitely CJ's mom. Like, she definitely knows something, and I'm just not sure what it is that she's not telling CJ. Then we find out that little thing was actually, I was at first, I was like, is that a flask or something? It's like, no, it's a case for Sean for his drugs. Like, Percy found him getting high, and after that they were avoiding each other. She's like, I knew, like, leaving he would be worse off because I did it. But he tracked her down, and he's actually the one that told her, like, she was already searching for places, but she tried to pretend like, oh, it's nothing. But he's like, no, go. He's like, if you feel like you need to go, maybe you should go. Don't tell your grandma or anything. It's like, don't stay here, because he's like, if you stay here, you're probably going to end up like me, and he doesn't want that. Like, and the sad thing is, Percy kind of did follow in his trail, like, obviously getting hooked on the drugs and drinking and just, like, spiraling out, It was pretty bad, and it's just like, and I'm sure that's what makes Sean upset even the most, because it's like, I couldn't do anything for my daughter. It's like, it's time for you to do something for yourself, because everyone wants something from you, and they're taking pieces of you in the process. It's like, you need to take care of yourself and not don't concern yourself about me, about Colin, about your grandma, about the business. Just take care of you. You got to look after yourself, Amir, you know? And she's like, what about you? Like, what if happens to you if I, like, he was like, I'll figure it out, you know? But essentially, it's like, you want to blame yourself. But he was like, no, like, everyone's at fault for what happened. Because initially, he thought the wheel that with Valerie on the back of it, or the thing from the boat, he thought that was connected to Colin. But it's like, actually, the cross was. She tried to apologize to Colin, but Colin was very judgmental, because she was like, right, I'm sorry. Like, I'm grateful. I'm glad that, you know, I'm grateful for what you were trying to do for me. And I see what going back to the church has done for you. And I'm happy for you. It just wasn't for me. He was like, oh, but you didn't really give it a try. It's like, he didn't want to listen to anything she had to say. Like, for her, it's just like what I'm struggling with. And he was like, boo hoo. Like, everyone's dealing with it. Grow up. It's just like, who are you to tell, like, because I guess because he found his way past everything because of, like, the church, and he was just like, oh, so you don't believe in God now? I'm like, maybe, because it sounds like he left the church for a while, because I guess he was spiraling on his own right, whether it's related to this death that has impacted Percy the way it has, or whether it was something else unrelated, but he eventually found his way back. But it's just like, his mentality of not willing to, like, see things from her perspective, that he's so caught up in his situation of like, this helped me, I'm trying to help you, but you turn away from God, and you're, you know, all this blah 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 that you're believing in. I mean, obviously, like, Meg looks at it, it's like, because even later on when she's talking about Meg, she's like, oh, that witch woman. It's like, you know, so that's the problem with that family. They weren't just, like, too open-minded just to, like, see. They saw Percy was struggling, but it's just, in Colin's mind, it's just like, you're not putting in the work. You're just trying to find an easy solution type of thing. His perspective on things just seemed like, it's even what Percy says, like, you make it seem like everything's just so black and white, like that there's more. But for him, because I think for him it's just kind of like, there's right and there's wrong, good, evil. Like, he's like, there's a clear path to this and there's a wrong path to things. But for her, it's like, you know, there is shades of gray. She was willing to see those, but Colin wouldn't. Maybe he just wouldn't allow himself to see shades of gray anymore, because for him, seeing things black and white, it brought structure to it. It was like, it brought stability. But for Percy, it's like, I can't live that life of just seeing things black and white. Like, you're kind of closing yourself off to so much in the world. Like, she was, because of everything with M, she was able to open herself up, you know, and feel something she hadn't probably felt before, you know, felt in a long time, or either hasn't felt at all. It gave her some peace, that those shades of gray, like, but he just, like, once again, wasn't willing to see it. Obviously, the perspective on the situation with Meg being like, oh, don't worry, you'll have it figured out, which she clearly told Meg, I don't want this, like, give it to like Brandon's family or something, like give it to him, like, he can run the business, I don't want it anymore. And she's like, oh yes you do, like, you're so good at your it's like, but for her, it's like, because she was pretending to be someone she wasn't. She was being the Muldoon that her family wanted. Her grandma wanted her to be. And it's like, I don't want that. But her grandmother wasn't listening. That's the problem. Like, they claim to care about her so much, but neither one of them was willing to listen, because she's like, you wanting me to take over the business, that's just what you. And she's like, so this is 4 generations of the Muldoons have made this business what it is. And what are you going to do? Just spit in the face of it? Like, if it wasn't for them Muldoon's business, you wouldn't have this house, you wouldn't have this room. And it's just making her seem like she's some ungrateful brat. Like, she's going through something, and like, being here isn't what she wants anymore. Her dad at the very least seemed like he was willing to let her go. But obviously, like, other things, she just couldn't let go of. Like, everyone in her family, CJ, like, whatever secrets, whatever darkness was holding her back, she couldn't let go. So there's that. But then we finally get to the wheel, and that has, not the wheel, but the little thing that has Valerie on it that comes from the boat, that is connected to, like, some death. Like, there was a struggle on a boat, someone got hit, pushed against it, and that's why it broke off. But then, like, we see her because M had said, like, that spot that Larry, I'm about to call him Larry, Harry found her at the beginning of the series, like, and they talked for a little bit. That same spot is her spot. She's always there alone, and now it seems like that's why, because that place has ties to that, where, like, that body either washed up or maybe they disposed of the body. But M's the one that kept pushing her to kind of like push past it. But Percy just couldn't deal with it. And she like squeezed that thing until her hand started bleeding. And she grabbed her totems and left. I guess that was like the last time her and M interacted. And I guess soon after, like, and just, you know, next time it's like, yeah, Percy jumped. And that's what's eating her up inside, because she's like, what if, you know, can you push someone to suicide? And Harry says a line of, you can't save someone that doesn't want to be saved. And then you have M being like, then why are you still here? It's like, right, Percy's gone, yet you're still fighting so hard to understand her, still fighting to understand what happened to her, that you're still fighting to save her, and to some extent, because by saving Percy, maybe he can end up saving himself. Or because if he, once again, it's like everything he gets from these people, from these cases, Cora, Julian, Jamie, and now Percy, it's a bit of understanding himself. He takes a piece of them and they take a piece, he takes a piece of them and they take a piece of him. It's all a complicated thing of just like, he always gets too close to the edge, too close to the abyss. He definitely, once again, he definitely did when it came to Jamie, and that's what's weighing him down, because it's like, right, you know, you're just like me. You can't let go of your own guilt, is what the person in his head said. You can't let go of what happened to Jamie, Sonia, Faye, his ex-wife, or even your own mother, because he has guilt about all that. I think it's like guilt for, because for him it's like, I killed someone I didn't have to kill, Jamie. Feels like he didn't open himself up for Sonia. He wasn't there for Sonia. Kind of the same thing for Faye. Like he couldn't communicate. He couldn't be there. You know, I'm sure that associates with his daughter and his grandchild. That got complicated last season as well. But also his mother, like what he did, like for the sake of like his mother wasn't there for him. He was a child and she was going through what she was going through. So his regrets and guilt about all of that is kind of what's holding him down. But for Percy, it's like, you need to just let this go before you end up just like me. You know, and he's like, maybe that's what I deserve. And Percy's like, no one deserves that. You know, and the fact is that he believes that he deserves that. It's the heartbreaking aspect of it. So the next day, like he talks about it with Sonia, he's like, I actually slept for the first time. And he called Sonia up because I think he did want to kind of apologize. He wanted to let her go, because even then he still couldn't bring himself to open up and talk. And so she's just like, hey, I those photos, it was like a thumb drive and some photos. It's what was taken. I could send you the backup I have. It's like, if there's anything else. He was like, no, that's good. She's like, okay. Because she isn't trying to get mixed up in this, but he did want to, he just couldn't bring himself to talk about it. Like, once again, he, like, why this hit so home, like, hard, like, why it hit so home to him. You know, it's like the Percy situation of her potentially killing herself. Like, he couldn't open up to Sonia last episode about like what was going on in his mind. He has a hard time opening up to people in general, and I think that's why he has his own demons that he hasn't talked about, that he can't quite throw away. He's just, you know, I think the Jamie situation, like if he had met Percy before everything happened with Jamie, like who knows like how this whole experience would have affected him. But because this is post Jamie, like he understands Percy on a level I think no one else can, what's kind of going through him. So I don't think M is responsible. I think there's other pieces at play here. But obviously Meg tracks him down. It's like, right, I know you visited that witch woman, but she won't talk to me. And it's like, right, about someone's death. Because it turns out Valerie was written after their ritual, because when M had seen her last, like that wasn't there when they were doing their ritual. So what's the significance of the name Valerie? That's definitely going to be interesting. Harry had found, looking at the photos that Sonia had sent him, there was like 2 like boats or whatever. Like it seems like these pictures are why someone broke into the place, and it turns out one of those boats was Brandon's, which if I remember correctly, Brandon was Percy's ex, wasn't he? I believe so. I believe that's who he is. But even Meg talked about the fact is, she's like, I know I haven't given you much reason to trust me, but the reason why it's like she hasn't been so vocal about a lot of stuff, you know, with family business, it's like this small town being what it is. Because she even talked about it with Percy in the past. It's like the moment Percy's grandfather died, like everyone was talking behind Meg's back about like, oh, how she'll never be able to do it on her own. So she had constantly had something to prove to herself, to other people. And Percy kind of had that to some extent, like, okay, I'll be the person you need me to be, but that in itself kind of caused her to sort of drown. that was the whole point. She felt like she was drowning in everything of what everyone expects her to be, drowning in her guilt over everything. But Brandon's boat comes in, but it turns out, well, circling back to it, it's just like, you're not very good at being open in a small town where like people are going to judge you about everything, and it kind of creates you not being able to talk, which even Harry's like, I get that, like he understands like not being so open, like he understands that as well. But Brandon's boat comes up and there's no sign of Brandon until they pull up the line on the other side and they find him, and there's a bullet in his head. So this wasn't no accident. There wasn't like some, oh, I killed myself. It's like, nope, someone killed him. For what purpose? Whether it's someone that believes he was responsible for Percy, whether it's someone believing, I guess whoever he's connected to in this, whatever it was that he was trying to hide, his connection to all of this ended up, I guess, being like, oh, you're too much of a loose end, so I got to get rid of you now. Maybe Brandon started asking too many questions. Whatever the case may be, just when we get answers on one front, a whole other mystery, well, more questions get asked, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.